My younger brother's little market surprise made everyone cry, in the best way possible. The autumn air was crisp that Saturday morning when my younger brother Danny announced he was going to the farmer's market. Nothing unusual about that. Our family had been going to the same market for years, where vendors sold everything from organic vegetables to homemade jam. What we didn't know was that this ordinary trip would become the most extraordinary moment of our lives. Danny was 12 years old, with a mop of unruly brown hair that never stayed combed and a gap-toothed smile that could light up a room. He had Down syndrome, and while some people saw limitations, our family only saw limitless love and an uncanny ability to find joy in the smallest things. "I need to go alone today," Danny declared at breakfast, his voice carrying that determined tone he got when he'd made up his mind about something. Mom looked up from her coffee, concerned. "Honey, you know we always go together." "Please, Mom. I'm 12. I can do it." He crossed his arms, looking so grown up that my heart squeezed a little. Dad and I exchanged glances. The market was only 3 blocks away, in the town square where everyone knew everyone. Our small town of Millbrook was the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked and neighbors watched out for each other. "I'll follow at a distance," I offered. "He won't even know I'm there." Danny shot me a look that could have curdled milk. "Emma, no." But Mom was already nodding at me, and we had a deal. Danny would get his independence, and I'd be his invisible guardian angel. 45 minutes later, I watched from behind a display of pumpkins as Danny made his way through the market with a purposefulness I'd never seen before. He wasn't browsing, he was on a mission. In his hand, he clutched a small notebook, and he kept checking it, his lips moving as he read whatever was written there. He stopped at Mrs. Peterson's flower stand first. Mrs. Peterson had run that stand for 30 years, and her face crinkled into a warm smile when she saw Danny approaching. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw Danny pull out his wallet, small blue velvet pouch our grandmother had given him, and carefully count out bills. Mrs. Peterson wrapped a bouquet of sunflowers, but then something strange happened. She refused his money. Danny insisted, holding out the bills, but she shook her head firmly, pressed the flowers into his hands, and then did something that made my throat tight. She hugged him. This scene repeated itself at vendor after vendor. At the bakery stand, Mr. Chin gave him a box of pastries and waved away payment. At the fruit stand, young Maria loaded a bag with apples and pears, her eyes mysteriously misty. By the time Danny reached the meat vendor, word seemed to spread, and a small crowd was beginning to form. I moved closer, curiosity overcoming my promise to stay hidden. "Danny, my boy," old Tom from the butcher shop called out. "I've got your order ready." Danny's face broke into that magnificent smile. "Really? You remembered?" "Of course I remembered. This is important." I watched, bewildered, as Tom handed over several wrapped packages, refusing payment just like the others. By now, at least 20 people had gathered, and I recognized most of them. They were regulars at the market, people we'd seen every weekend for years. Then Danny did something that made my heart stop. He turned to address the crowd. "Thank you all for helping me." His voice rang out, clear and strong despite his speech difficulties. "I couldn't do this without you." "Danny." I stepped forward, unable to help myself. "What's going on?" His face fell when he saw me. "Emma, you followed me." "I'm sorry, but what are you doing? Why is everyone giving you things?" Mrs. Peterson came up beside Danny, putting a protective hand on his shoulder. "Your brother has been planning this for 3 months, dear." "Planning what?" Danny looked down at his shoes, suddenly shy. The crowd had grown even larger now, and I saw Mom and Dad pushing through, clearly alerted by someone that something was happening. "Danny." Mom's voice was confused but gentle. My brother took a deep breath, and when he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "I wanted to make Thanksgiving dinner, all by myself, for our family." The words hung in the air, simple and profound. "You see," Mrs. Peterson explained, her own voice wavering, "Danny came to me 3 months ago with a plan. He'd been saving his allowance and wanted to make Thanksgiving dinner for your family. He had it all written down." She held up the notebook I'd seen him checking. Every ingredient, every dish. Mr. Chin stepped forward. He asked each of us what we could contribute. He wanted to earn everything, pay for everything himself. But when we heard what he was doing and why. "Why?" Dad asked, his voice rough with emotion. Danny was crying now, happy tears streaming down his face. "Because I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being my family. Thank you for never making me feel different or wrong. Thank you for loving me." He wiped his nose with his sleeve. "I see other kids like me sometimes, and their families look tired or sad. But you guys, you make me feel like I'm perfect exactly how I am." I don't know who started crying first, but suddenly we were all sobbing, Mom, Dad, me, and what seemed like half the market. People we barely knew had tears running down their faces. When Danny told me his plan, Maria from the fruit stand said, "I went home and hugged my kids, so hard they complained." It reminded me what really matters. "He came to each of us," Tom added, so proud, with his little notebook and his savings. Told us exactly what he needed and why. How could any of us take money for that? This boy was teaching us about gratitude and love. Old Mr. Henderson, who usually kept to himself at his honey stand, spoke up. "I've been selling honey at this market for 42 years. I've seen a lot of things. But this young man reminded me why we do this, why we come together as a community. It's not about the money or the transactions. It's about taking care of each other." Danny was surrounded now, people hugging him, ruffling his hair, shaking his hand. He'd come to the market to buy ingredients for a meal, but he'd somehow sparked something deeper, a reminder of what community could be. "But I wanted to pay." Danny protested through his tears. "I saved for 3 whole months." Mom knelt down to his level, not caring that she was crying so hard her mascara was running. "Baby, you just gave everyone here something more valuable than money. You reminded us all what love looks like." Dad was openly weeping now, something I'd only seen him do once before, when his own father passed away. "I'm so proud of you, son. So incredibly proud." Through my own tears, I watched my little brother, this boy who the world sometimes underestimated, who faced challenges every single day that most people couldn't imagine, who worked twice as hard to do things that came easily to others, standing in the middle of the farmer's market, teaching an entire community about grace, gratitude, and unconditional love. Mrs. Peterson pressed something into Danny's hand. "This is from all of us," she said. "A gift card to the toy store. You saved your money for your family. Now you buy something for yourself." "But No buts, Mr. Chen said firmly. This is what family does. And like it or not, kid, you're family to everyone here now. The crowd erupted in agreement, and someone started clapping. Soon everyone was applauding, this wave of love and appreciation washing over my brother, who stood there beaming, confused, overwhelmed, and so happy. But the surprises weren't over. There's one more thing, Tom said, pulling out his phone. Danny, you wanted to make Thanksgiving dinner yourself, right? To prove you could do it. Danny nodded vigorously. Well, young man, you're going to need some help. Professional help. He turned his phone screen around, and there on a video call was a face I recognized from the cooking shows Mom loved to watch, Chef Marcus Williams, a local celebrity who'd made it big and had his own restaurant in the city. Danny's jaw dropped. Chef Marcus. Hey there, Danny. The chef's warm voice came through the speaker. Tom told me about your Thanksgiving project. How'd you like a sous chef? I'll come to your house on Thanksgiving morning, and we'll cook this meal together. You'll be head chef. I'm just there to help. I thought Danny might faint. His eyes were wide as saucers, and he couldn't seem to form words. He watches your show every week, Mom managed to say. He has your cookbook. Then it's settled, Chef Marcus grinned. Danny, I'm honored you'd let me help with such an important meal. The fact that you planned this, saved for it, and wanted to do it yourself, that's the sign of a true chef. The best cooking doesn't come from fancy techniques or expensive ingredients. It comes from love. And buddy, you've got that in spades. The crowd erupted again, and this time Danny did sit down, right there in the middle of the market, overwhelmed by it all. I sat beside him, pulling him into a hug. You're amazing, you know that? I whispered. He looked at me with those eyes full of innocence and wisdom all at once. I just wanted to say, thank you. I know. And you did. You said it better than any words could. As the crowd began to disperse, people kept coming up to Danny, to our family, sharing their own stories. The woman from the cheese stand told us about her sister with autism and how Danny's joy at the market every week inspired her. The young couple who sold pottery revealed they had a son with special needs and that seeing our family together gave them hope for their future. The elderly man with a vegetable stand mentioned his grandson, recently diagnosed, and how scared the family had been, until he started watching how we interacted with Danny and realized that different didn't mean less. We'd been coming to this market for years, never knowing that our normal, everyday interactions were being observed, appreciated, meaningful to others. Danny's simple act of gratitude had pulled back a curtain, revealing a whole community that had been quietly supporting us, learning from us, growing alongside us. That night at dinner, Danny couldn't stop talking about Thanksgiving. He had his notebook out, going over every dish with Dad, asking questions, making notes. Chef Marcus had already emailed him some tips and tricks. The sunflowers from Mrs. Peterson sat in a vase on the table, bright and cheerful. I can't believe Chef Marcus is coming to our house, Danny said for the 100th time. To our house. You earned it, buddy, Dad said. You know what you did today? You showed people what leadership looks like. A real leader doesn't just take care of themselves. They bring people together. They remind everyone of what's important. That's what you did. Danny considered this, taking it seriously as he always did when Dad talked to him about being a man. I just wanted you guys to know I love you. We know, honey, Mom said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. We've always known. But what you did today, it wasn't just for us. You touched so many lives. 2 weeks later, on Thanksgiving morning, Chef Marcus arrived at 6 a.m. with a box of professional kitchen tools and a smile as big as the sunrise. True to his word, he let Danny lead, stepping in only to guide and teach. Our kitchen had never been so full of activity, laughter, and delicious smells. The turkey was perfect. The stuffing was incredible. The mashed potatoes were so creamy, they could have been served at a 5-star restaurant. Every dish was a triumph, and Danny beamed with pride as he surveyed the table he'd worked so hard to create. But before we ate, there was a knock at the door. Then another. And another. Word had spread, of course it had, this was Millbrook, and soon our small dining room was filled to bursting. Mrs. Peterson brought wine. Tom brought his famous apple pie. Mr. Chen arrived with his whole family. The market vendors, the neighbors, people whose lives Danny had touched without even knowing it, they all came, bearing dishes and gratitude. We pushed tables together, found every chair in the house, and sat down to a Thanksgiving feast unlike any other. Danny sat at the head of the table, Chef Marcus on one side, and our dad on the other, looking like the proudest 12-year-old in the world. When it came time to say what we were thankful for, Danny went first. I'm thankful for my family, he said, his voice steady and clear. And I'm thankful for this town. And I'm thankful that I get to be me. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Mrs. Peterson spoke next. I'm thankful for Danny, who reminded this old woman that it's never too late to show people you love them. One by one, around that crowded, chaotic, perfect table, people shared their gratitude. Not the rote, expected statements of thanks, but real, vulnerable, beautiful truths about what mattered in their lives. Danny had created more than a meal. He'd created a moment of genuine human connection, the kind that was becoming increasingly rare in our busy, disconnected world. As I looked around at all these faces, some familiar, some less so, all brought together by my little brother's simple desire to say thank you, I realized something profound. We spend so much time focusing on what people with disabilities can't do, on their limitations and challenges. We forget to see what they can teach us about living with open hearts, about loving without reservation, about finding joy in the everyday moments that the rest of us are too busy to notice. Danny didn't just make Thanksgiving dinner that year. He reminded an entire community how to be human. He showed us that gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's an action. That love